Hey Kate, I'm so excited that you're here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me, Barbara. So am I.
It's going to be such a good conversation. So, as you know, I normally kick off these chats by asking you where you want to start. Whereabouts in your journey would be a great starting point?
Usually I start at the past to explain why I am where I am today, but can we start in the future about what's coming up? Because
Yeah,
that's
let's do it. Yeah, nobody's done that yet, so let's start in the future. Yeah, whereabouts and how far ahead are we going?
not too far, just a year and a half. So in like
Amazing.
June, well, let's say September 2023, we'll
Right.
jump straight into that.
So
Uh,
if you're listening on the recording, when today's date is the 4th of January 2022. So we're right at the beginning of the year. So we're jumping ahead till 2023. What did you say? June time, did you say?
we'll say the end of the year just to
Oh,
make
the
it
end
a
of
bit
the
easier.
year. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it. What's happening then?
Yeah. So I've decided to set a bigger challenge for myself. So I was originally, by the end of next year, going to have cycled across America, swum the English Channel, and summited Everest.
Amazing.
And I created a small team to do it all, and it was going to be this huge feat of human endurance over 10 months. But lockdown happened and a lot of reflection, and I realized that that isn't the path. It wasn't singing to my purpose. There was a lot I was pushing through to make a point to prove it. So by the end of next year, the entire project sort of taken a life on its own. I don't have kids, so it's any imagination I've got of giving birth to an idea and watching it form in front of me. So by the end of next year, my partner and I would have cycled 3,000 miles around the coastline of England, Scotland, and Wales. And we would have planted 3,000 trees with 30 different communities.
Amazing. So good.
Because I realized that me doing what I love, which is sport, pushing myself outside my comfort zone and breaking barriers, etc. It's all fair and well because I'm getting a benefit, but I want a life of we. I want a life of team and community and give back and the positive ripples we talk about so much. So that's why I'm not swimming anymore. That's why I'm not climbing Everest or flying to the States. I'm doing it on home turf because I do want that camaraderie feeling that I'm more like the piece of string connecting communities rather than the story in itself.
Amazing. So good. So this is happening. Well, it will have happened by the end of next year. And there's so much that I want to unpack just in that first 5 minutes we've had together. Um, so my first question, I think, is where did it all come from? So I know you've changed your challenge, and I don't see that as downscaling. I just think it's a shift. You know, it's just a shift of again being more aligned with your purpose. And I love what you said, the life of we, because it just resonates with me, and it's very much in alignment with what I'm about. But where did it all start? What happened to kick all of this off?
Oh golly gosh. I think in my heart I've always been someone who just goes to the max whatever she does. So if I try something, I want to make sure I do my best and I achieve as much as I can from it. But the big wake up call for me, I suppose, was in 2012, just 6 days before a wedding. It was in quite a toxic relationship, but I felt I couldn't get out of it. I didn't feel I had a voice. I was being quite controlled physically, mentally as well. So I was sort of a shell of an individual that couldn't speak up and say she didn't want to get married. I do know I was speaking about myself in third person because I don't feel connected at all to that lady anymore. But my fiance left me 6 days before our wedding. And in that moment, I felt completely alone. I was running a business by myself. I had to look after the mortgage by myself because he left me with all the debt and took the money out of the bank account as well. And so I was believing the words he told me, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't good enough, that I needed him to survive, that I couldn't survive without him. So I was feeling this massive overwhelm. But then I found out every day I was still waking up and doing it. So I was in this sort of paradox of, do I believe the limiting beliefs in my head? Do I believe what I've been told all my life, that I'm not good enough? Or do I just step into taking every day as it comes? And so I chose the latter. I dropped the bitterness about him or the drinking alcohol and blaming him for it months later, and chose to start dreaming bigger and giving myself a space to be comfortable in that discomfort. We talk about getting into our stretch zone and out of our comfort zone, but we forget that it's super scary. We've never been there. I was waking up, sweating, going, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay 20 grand by the end of the week? But I'd find a way. I never gave up. I never, what's the worst that can happen is I pass away, but I never died. And I worked out how to overcome every single thing that I approached, sometimes beautifully and elegantly, other times pretty gnarly and messily. But that's when I created a dream of taking up triathlon again. I was doing triathlon when I met my partner 9 years prior, but he convinced me that I'd done enough. He'd miss me if I went out training. So I stopped my dream for him, and I stayed at home and we watched TV together because I thought that was love. So I took up triathlon and I put my heart and soul into it. And why would we need to cap our potential? I decided that instead of saying that I just wanted to finish, I wanted to find out how far I could actually go. So without having ever entered a triathlon, I set the goal of becoming a world champion in it. And quite funnily, within 14 months of my first triathlon, I was age group world champion in long distance triathlon. So my limit was what I set it was, but I would never have got there had I sort of compromised and settled for just finishing or halving my potential by what I thought I was capable of, rather than just truly finding what I was.
I love all of that. And again, so much that I want to kind of go back to. But one thing that you said that piqued my interest was why cap ourselves? And this is literally what this podcast is all about, smashing your own ceiling. So when you set this dizzy height of, I'm not going to just do a triathlon, I'm going to be a world champion triathlon, was there anything in terms of old beliefs that you had to overcome, or did you just think, sod it, I'm going big? So was there any kind of messiness in between that you had to kind of unpick, other than the ones that you'd already dropped from your ex-relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I was under immense pressure emotionally, physically. My ex was suing me. My father stopped speaking to me. So I had a lot of distractions that were bigger than a triathlon. So I've created this syndrome called the toilet seat syndrome, where our lives get so small, we get infatuated whether the toilet seat's up or down. And that's our biggest problem of the day. My triathlon was the smallest thing in the world because I had so much else going on. So a lot of my limiting beliefs, I just didn't have the time to even listen to, because I was in sink or swim mode all the time. So it was a blessing my life was so crappy. But I can see them now. Like now I'm in my comfort zone pushing, I can see them still reappearing, because we're not a done deal. We might get through something and be number one in the world, but we still have beliefs that aren't serving us. So I still to this day procrastinate, worry about what people think if I'm going to do it, and self-sabotage. So they're all present. But the first thing I had to give myself was permission to give it a go, and to start loving myself, because I'm my worst enemy.
Yeah, aren't we all? Yeah, aren't we all? We're all our worst enemies, aren't we? So when you were focusing on this, on your triathlon and going big, how did that help you with all the other aspects of your life that was going on, all the other messiness?
It gave me perspective. I didn't waste time thinking about doing something. I just did it. I didn't have time to open an email and read it and then get back to it and do it again. I had to answer every email I read today. That's a silly example, but there was no double handling. I needed to sort of streamline my life, cut out the things that didn't work. If I didn't batch cook my food on Sundays, by Thursday, I was hungry because I didn't have any food left, because I didn't have time to cook. So it was very integral life. I needed to do exactly what I said when, otherwise the impact or the consequence was a lot greater in the future. Yeah. So it squeezed out the excuses and made me very sort of refined.
And that there is just gold. What you've just said, Kate, is gold, because so often, and I was thinking about this morning actually, because here we are on the 4th of January and everything tends to kickstart again. My daughter's gone back to school, and you get back into the alarm clock, turning the alarm clock off and getting into your day. And what it would be like to do exactly what you've just described, of just squeeze out all the unnecessariness that takes up so much time, like double handling stuff and not planning ahead and not being organized, and all the things that actually make our life so much easier. And there's real, the success comes from the basics, doesn't it? From just really zoning in on the things that will move that needle for you. And that's exactly what you did. So how do you use that now? Did it continue?
I went through ebbs and flows. So there are moments where I regressed, if you want to call it that, or stayed in the procrastination zone and overthought things and mulled it over and thought I needed to do more knowledge-based activities rather than action-based. But at the moment, it's about, for me, I've set myself one resolution. So I've dropped the 10, 20, 30 little tasks. I've got enough on. I've got enough people who offer me projects, and I've got this challenge 3000 coming up for me to say yes to. What is the one thing that would have the biggest impact in my life? And that's the only question I'm asking myself, is just do the one thing that will have the biggest impact in this moment.
Yes.
And that's really helping me. I know it's only 4 days in, but it is helping me give me that perspective moving forward and cut out that overwhelm as well. Absolutely,
because all the unnecessariness, all it does is drive overwhelm, doesn't it? And you end up just spinning your wheels and wondering what to do and how to start. So I'm so excited that you got to this place, yeah, that actually, I know you went through so much in order to kind of get your head above water and start doing your sport again. How did it feel? Because I'm just curious, how did it feel when you finally got back into triathlon after all those years of parking it? What was that like?
It was like I found myself again. I could feel I was feeling more. I was more me. I wouldn't say I'm happy, because that's just a fleeting moment, but I just felt more at peace. I wasn't looking, at night, my ex stole our TV as well, and I didn't replace it, but I wasn't looking for distraction or unplugging from the day. I was happy to just be. It's like the spikes and troughs of the day, of the energy, like, super highs and super lows, excited and the miseries, just sort of not flatlined, but just went a bit quieter. So I was able to just focus and sort of be at peace with who I was and where I am. And it was actually quite pleasant, because I could sleep better, enjoy eating, because I was just eating, not thinking about the tasks in the future, and run if I was running, and experience my body whilst under physical pressure as well.
Yeah, and again, that idea of giving yourself permission to just find yourself again. And so that's something that so many of us struggle with. And I know, obviously, as a fellow coach, you'll experience that with your clients, as well as obviously you've done it yourself. This feeling out of alignment, where you're not quite, it just feels clunky, doesn't it, when you're not quite in tune with yourself. So what process did you go through to say yes to that? Or was it an obvious choice for you because you'd done it before?
I didn't know. I just remember I always do a full Ironman, which is a certain distance. It's 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, followed by a marathon. And I completed a half Ironman when I met my partner, and he talked me out of doing the full Ironman. It was my choice to feed it, because I was obviously concerned about the distances anyway, but I stopped when I met him training for the Ironman. So I had an incompleted goal. I don't mind if I couldn't complete it, but I never even tried, and that didn't sit with me. So I picked it up purely to give something selfishly back to me.
Yeah.
For the past 9 years, my tick list was, everything from my partner, the food, the business, the dogs, the house, and right at the bottom, sometimes I'd get a look in on what I needed to look after. I just bumped me to the top, and triathlon gave me that permission to put me first.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so common that we put ourselves at the bottom of our own pecking order. Everything comes first, whether it's the kids, the partner, just the daily tasks of going to the supermarket and doing our work or our business. And I love the idea of let's just put ourselves first. What would that be like? How would that feel? And just leaning into curiosity, rather than, what could go wrong? How would it actually feel? What could I actually do it? And I love that you did that. So I'm going to say naturally, but I'm sure at the time it didn't feel very natural.
Well, I was coming up, I was excusing myself to my friends. I'm so sorry, I've got to go running, but I've got this triathlon. And I was like, why am I excusing myself from doing what I want to do? It was amazing to catch myself how much I was living in a sense of obligation and fitting what society expected from me.
Yes. And when you start catching yourself in that moment, it's a real eye-opener, isn't it? You kind of just stop for a second and think, why am I doing that? Where's that come from? How can I rewrite that? And when you stop doing that, because I imagine that you have stopped apologizing for it now, and it's just, this is what I'm doing. This is just what I'm doing. Especially as you're working towards this amazing challenge. So let's go into that, because I'm so interested and I really want to delve into this challenge because it sounds fantastic. And it's a real step up from doing a triathlon, isn't it? You've really shifted up a gear. So before we do, actually, I am again curious about, what did it feel like when you got world champion of triathlon?
Great question.
Like,
so it was in China, the race, and my parents flew out to see me, and I had no idea when I crossed the line how I finished. I don't speak Mandarin, but there was no announcement or anything. I was just sort of hustled into a corner and then put on a podium. So I knew I was top 3. It sounds completely strange, but because I'd accepted every eventuality, from winning to also not even finishing, there was no sort of elation. It was just peace to know that I'd found my limit and I hadn't given up on a dream. So it was sort of a lightening, if you want. It just felt brighter, more aware. It wasn't actually an emotional feeling. But the thing that stuck in my mind is my mum kept saying to me, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I'm there with the gold medal going, what can't you believe? I can't believe you're world champion. But Mum, what do you need in your life to believe that a dream is possible? Because I'm here with the gold medal on my neck. If you can't believe it now, then, you know, we've got problems.
What can you believe? When can you believe it?
Yeah. And straight afterwards, my dad was carrying, I had this quite tacky plate. It was made out of ceramics, and he dropped it and chipped it. And again, another insight into life is my dad suddenly, he's not very emotional. He burst into tears and said, oh my gosh, I've broken your record. I've broken your world championships. I need to buy a new one. I need to fix this. And I went, you can't fix it, but no one can take it from me either. Because next year I might not be the world champion, but I don't need a plate or a medal or something to know that in me, I have a championship mindset and a championship potential to unlock. So I keep that. I was going to throw it away, but I keep that plate and show him every time he comes to remind him of the chip, because until he accepts that the chip doesn't diminish who I am, I'm going to keep it, which is maybe a bit cruel, but
no, I don't think it's cruel at all. I think it's a real lesson in what we attach meaning to, you know, and this is what, especially as your dad and as a parent, he didn't want to, I imagine, just take away anything or you know, spoil this achievement in any way by chipping this plate. And so he'd attached so much meaning into what this chip meant for him. And we do that all the time, don't we? We attach meaning to some things that just really don't matter, because what really mattered in that moment was that you'd done it, you'd won it, you proved to yourself that you could do it.
We don't need to have a fast car or a big house to know that we are happy or, you know, joyous or confident. You know, we always focus, it seems the world's focusing on the haves, not the being. Yes. And it was just a great example and reminder for me about my dad, that I needed to have a perfect medal to be a champion, where it was the wrong way around. Yeah,
exactly, because you were, and you are, you always will be. And what, because I know people listening to this might think, you know what, but I'm not an athlete, and I'm not going to do a triathlon, and I don't want to be a world champion. But it doesn't really matter, does it? It could be literally anything. It's just about that belief. And there's a great quote, and I'm totally going to butcher it now that I've started talking about it, that I think it's from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, where he says that something along the lines of, it takes as much energy to think negative things or to think limiting beliefs than it is to think positive ones and really go for your dreams. And I know I've totally butchered that quote, but the essence is there. So, but often we choose it to think, oh, we can't do it, or it's okay for Kate because she's this athlete and she's amazing. But how does that fit into my life? It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just about picking something.
Yeah, and just to share, like, a couple of years out, so the year after being a world champion, I qualified for 5 more world championships, and I competed in them all but didn't podium, and returned back to the UK after selling my businesses in Australia. And I had a terrible wobble in that, because I started to attach myself as a triathlete. Kate the triathlete. It wasn't Kate the human being who does triathlon. And I took up yoga and tore a ligament in my hips. I can't run anymore. So I lost my identity. And I really sort of felt very, very isolated, as if I put myself on a pedestal. Like I had to be a triathlete and I had to have my shit together because I had done so well. And whenever I called my friends, they were like, oh, you'll be fine. And I didn't feel I had a space to share my vulnerability or my sadness. So for weeks, I'd stay indoors. I wouldn't leave the house. I struggled to get out of bed. I would meditate and start crying, thinking I wasn't doing it enough because my mind wouldn't shut up. And I was, not good enough to even meditate. And I didn't want to lean on who I was in the past, because that was sort of causing my problems. I wasn't living up to my own expectations now. Like, as a world champion, I should be doing X, I should be doing Y. Why am I struggling with, making a proper meal every day, sort of thing? So I went into a local cafe and asked for a job. And I didn't tell them who I was. I just asked if I could have a job, and he offered me a 0-hour contract, £7.20 an hour, cleaning the toilets twice a week. And that's where I started, because I just wanted to find out who I am in the moment, not don't you know who I was. Yeah. I could have brought up my CVs and my master's degrees and stuff. I didn't. But that's where I found out that I can have passion cleaning toilets as well. It was a terrible job, but I was a world champion in that. I started to be proud of a great job. And I realized that I can be proud, confident, happy, successful in anything I do, be it triathlon or cleaning toilets as well.
Yes, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It's just about your attitude behind it. So yeah, I love that. Love that. So how did you go from, because cleaning those toilets and finding yourself yet again, you were in that moment of just unpicking and taking off those layers again, to where you are now, which is doing this epic challenge and training for this epic challenge that's going to happen next year. Is it next year that it actually happens, Kate, or is it this year?
We've got some training this year, but next year's the big, next year's the 3-month cycle.
Yeah. So how did you go from cleaning your toilets and starting to find yourself again?
I think in a nutshell, triathlon is very competitive. Any sport is, because it's us against somebody else, and our success is measured by other people's performance as well. So I evolved into doing world records in cycling. Again, I wanted to reach the top I could. So I was only competing against myself. So this year, earlier in 2021, during lockdown, I broke 3 world records and set a new one for a woman, the furthest distance on a static bike in 24 hours, because it was against no one, it was against me. So my evolution was finding out how I could be my best rather than my best compared to other people.
Yeah.
And so the evolution of the Challenge 3000 is about how I can still push myself, because 3,000 miles is enormous to cycle. But how can I make sure that I leave a legacy that is bigger than the show and tell of Kate's life? And so the cycle isn't about me cycling. It's about us planting trees while cycling on a bamboo bike, while talking about sustainability, while positively activism, if you want, positive activism around climate change and how we can all make a difference and work together. And so it's sort of evolved into community where I, as I say, I'm the piece of string holding it together, but I'm not the story anymore.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where I'm moving towards.
Yeah, I really, really love it. Well, can you remember the moment that you had the idea to do it?
It wasn't me who came up with it, because we were talking about, the first challenge was called the Limitless Challenge, 10 days across America, flying here, there and everywhere, then Nepal. And during lockdown, we were then discussing the logistics of flying 10 people to the States. And it just started to feel wrong, because I was justifying the carbon footprint of those flights. And I could offset them, but I feel that's a little bit missing the point. I needed to do something bigger. And so somebody suggested just do it on UK soil. And so just sitting with it, that just felt more natural. And then there was more traction, more companies, if you want. I was speaking to about sponsorship, were intrigued about the UK potential rather than the American potential. And so, the energy or the momentum started to grow around that. And squeezing in a swim for me, again, so another potential sponsor said, well, that's you, that's ego. And can you sit in Dover for a week waiting to swim when you're trying to cycle around for everyone else? Where's the we and you swimming? So it was a tough decision. It was my ego who wanted it present, because Kate wanted to do something big and bold and gutsy, but it just needed to be pulled out for the greatness for the greater good of the challenge.
And how did you give yourself permission to pull that out? How did you have this, the just drown out your ego saying, no, come on, I want to do this?
I've always got time. So it's if I talk to myself, I do talk to myself a lot. So I think I am crazy, but I think we're all crazy. I think we need to embrace our crazy a little more.
Absolutely, I talk to myself all the time too.
Yeah. So I was talking to myself, and ego really wanted it, and I was like, well, why do you want it? And it was to be acknowledged, to know that you're special and you can do it. And I went, brilliant. Can we do it another time? And it was as simple as that, but not. Realizing that we would get more by giving. It's again, I'm going to share a quote, but I'm sure I'm going to completely mess it up. We need to let go of what's in our hand to get something greater. But it's the fear of letting go and that instant moment of having nothing that most of us will never let go of. So I needed to let go of the swim to see what better or bigger project or challenge or adventure or rewards would come towards me. But I needed to let it go and see what would happen. Yeah,
and just be comfortable in that space. But you're right, it wasn't a forever thing. You'll probably still do it, but when the time's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually planning something in 2025 to do a swimming challenge, and then plant seagrass. So it's much more relevant.
Exactly. And that probably wouldn't have come if you'd have held tightly onto this swim this time.
Yeah, and the challenge wouldn't have worked, like cycling with anyway. So yeah, it's about just surrendering to what's the best route for all, not just I.
Yes. Now, again, one thing that I love about this conversation is that your ability to dream big. And I was having this conversation, funnily enough, in the podcast yesterday, about giving ourselves permission to dream big. And so often we dilute that. We think, oh, we can't. Who am I to do that? I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. And all of this noise, all of this nonsense bubbles up. What tips have you got for anyone listening that really would like to stretch themselves and expand and dream much bigger, but do get pulled back down by that inner critic, telling them no, telling them not to do it?
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse to dream big. And some people can fast forward into the future and see a 10-year project. Others, it's a much more logical and linear step-by-step process. So I don't think there's ever a right or a wrong way to do it. And some people just will never be able to have that 10-year vision, but they'll still get there by putting their head down and walking every day. So I think wherever they are, it's the right thing for them. But if we are noticing it, I suppose I'm just thinking about one client I'm working with in particular, because it is very close to what you're saying. She doesn't know what she wants to change. She just knows she wants to be more her, and she's not showing herself. She wants to be more confident, more her, more connected, more creative. we can't learn in books, we can't learn in knowledge. And I love coaching, but we can't learn with just coaches as well. We've got to take all our knowledge and bring it into the world. So we've actually created a project as if that would give her more confidence and more creativity. So if somebody out there listening feels they're missing a certain element of themselves, find a task that anyone from the outside watching you do that task would see you being more confident or creative or whatever you think you need more of, and do that task. So create a project, go to an art school, take up kickboxing, whatever that element that I could see as a stranger walking into a room, and do that, because that would give you the confidence moving towards it. So even if you didn't reach the goal of black belt or creating that project, you will be more of what you want to be that you feel is lacking in the today.
Yeah. Oh, such a good tip. Such a good tip. And by doing that, you're creating momentum, aren't you? By taking those small steps every day and just living that project, living that task, and it starts to naturally stretch you. And it can be just enough to inject that little bit of passion and energy back into your life that then, it's contagious, isn't it? It feeds out to all other aspects of your life and to all the people around you. And before you know it, you're off and running. So such a good tip. Right, I do want to talk more about this challenge then before we go into our quick fire round, Kate. So you've gone from wanting to climb Everest to now you're going to cycle all the way around the coast of the UK. Well, it's the UK, isn't it, essentially?
It's GB, because we're not going to Ireland.
Oh, right. GB.
I always forget. I'm so sorry for the Northern Irish. But yeah, England, Scotland, Wales, whatever.
England, Scotland, Wales, which is 3,000 miles. And you're going to plant 3,000 trees along the way. So, and you're doing it with you and your partner. And I know that he's not an athlete like you, is he? I know when we were chatting before. So this is a big task for him, big challenge, which is amazing. How does he feel about it? I know you're going to talk for him right now, but is he excited?
Overall, yes. Like he said yes immediately. But yeah, completely out of his comfort zone. He's never taken a holiday more than 2 weeks. So 3 months out, 3 or 2 months out, he's just completely panicking at that thought alone, let alone the cycling.
Yeah.
But as I keep saying to him, you don't need to cycle 3,000 miles today. We just need to cycle 20. So we can build up from today.
That's the thing. You just need to cycle 20 today, and 20 is achievable, right? So 20 is achievable. And how long is it going to take you? Did you say 3 months?
He wants 2 months. I want 3. So I'm saying 3. As many. If I tell you it's 3, then the world will believe me and stick to that. But yeah, between 2 and 3 months.
3 months then. So watch this space. Hopefully 3 months. And in terms of the trees, how are you going to manage that? Because are you having different locations? Have you found locations for the trees? Are the trees already going to be in situ when you get there, or how's that working?
I think we'll carry a spade, but we'll be looking this year for 30 key areas who will pledge to raise money themselves for the 100 trees they need to accumulate. So 30 areas, 100 trees. And we will be there for the first tree planting, and then we'll cycle on to the next spot. Right. So, and then the community will look after it, and it'll be the community that pledges it. But again, I just want to be present for the first tree planting.
Oh, amazing. So how can people get involved if you've got I guess if you're in a community where you've got space for 100 trees, or you want to get involved, how can they find you and get involved?
We will have a website, limitlesschallenge.global, but I'm currently building that. So the best thing to do is visit my website, katestrong.global, and we'll have a link to that. And yeah, if we can do more trees, then all the better. But it's at least 3,000. So right, okay. If you live in the middle of the country, we can still work together, because there will be support after the event to make sure that we keep planting trees ongoingly.
But ideally, you want people on the coast initially.
Yeah, initially, okay. Yeah.
So if you've got contacts on the coast of GB, or you live on the coast, then get in touch with Kate and let's get all of these amazing trees planted. I'm really excited for you, so excited. Right, Kate, let's do a bit of a quick fire round because it's a bit of a tradition now. And I say tradition, our podcast's not been going for very long, but this tradition that I've started of doing a bit of a quick fire round where I ask you any questions that pop into my head and let's just see what happens.
Okay.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. So are you planning to revisit Everest at any point?
I think so. I will. I don't know when. It'll be over slow travel. So we'll take a few weeks, if not a few months, to get there and return. So the experience from leaving my doorstep will be the travel rather than flying there and climbing a mountain. So yes, but I don't know when.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. How amazing. And what is, other than being a world champion, and obviously you've got this amazing challenge next year, what is the thing that you're most proud of in your life? What have you achieved that you're most proud of?
I think it's that first run after my partner left me. Actually, I was still with him. We were engaged. So he tracked my phone, so knew if I left the house, I couldn't spend money without his permission, and it was pretty horrific. And I just knew I needed to get out. I know it's a hugely obvious statement. I wanted to run, well, because I felt trapped. But so I just started to break his curfew he'd imposed on me. So I'd hide my mobile phone in my letterbox and just run 10 minutes up and down the road so I could still check if he called and come up with a valid excuse if he sort of asked me why I didn't answer immediately. But it was that run really that gave me the confidence to, planted the seed in self-belief that maybe this isn't what I want, and maybe I am a bit better than what I'm living in.
Yeah, I love that. What prompted that run? I know you said that it was about escaping, and you were in this such a toxic relationship, a horrendous relationship. What really spurred you on in terms of go for that run and start to break those patterns for yourself?
I really felt I couldn't say no. My parents had given the blessing for the relationship. We had a mortgage, so I really felt I couldn't say no. And it's ridiculous looking back, but the running was the only thing I had that was mine. Yeah. And I could see my entire life, I'd given up everything else, but I was like, just 1.5 hour a week. That's all I can give myself at the moment. But I had to give myself something, otherwise I felt completely lost.
Oh, I love that. And that was the start of everything. That was just the start of everything. And how did you get into coaching? Because we've not really touched upon that today.
It was whilst I was doing, after I suppose being world champion, that, as you can imagine, when I started running, I couldn't run a mile. And the whole village I lived in a village of 2,000 people in Australia. They all thought I was completely insane training to be a world champion. Yeah, I couldn't run to the bus stop without wheezing and stopping. And once I did, and people saw that I was actually so determined, even when I was the slowest, the worst, I didn't even own a bike. There was all these barriers to me not doing it. Afterwards, they started to ask me how did you dream so big? How did you plan your day? How did you do this? And I realized that how is actually monetizable, because we only value what we sort of pay for. So I started to give it for free and note that my answers for free, but realized people weren't making the changes. People who were actually committed to it financially and also with a process of X calls, they were then making the shift. So it was naturally for me to step into sort of monetizing the how, if you want, to help other people to achieve what they saw in me. Yeah. Because it has to be in them. You know this. If you see something in somebody, it's only a reflection of yourself, both good and bad. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So my last question then, Kate, and I could talk to you for ages, but I don't want to keep you all day. My last question is, have you got a book that you'd like to recommend to everybody?
It's a bit of a strange book, but yeah, I would like people to look at Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. It's quite an old book. It was written, I think, in the 1980s, and she died before the book became famous. But it's a sort of, it's based on the world as it is today, but really sort of reminds me about responsibility, owning our own power. And yeah, I just absolutely adore it. And it's also a huge book, so it's quite intimidating as well. So it took me 2 years to have the confidence to start reading it. But it really changed my life, and I zipped through it in about a matter of weeks. So yeah, Atlas Shrugged. Atlas
Shrugs. So we will put the link to that book and to all of your links as well. But where can people find you, Kate?
Yeah, as I said, the best thing is my website, katestrong.global. I am on social media, not massively, because I do want to make sure that I don't get sucked into the vortex of being online all the time and missing out on life. But yeah, katestrong.global is the best place, and Instagram and LinkedIn.
And do you have a Just Giving page as well? Can people sponsor you?
We will be setting that up, yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay. So go to Kate's website first for all of the info on the challenge and all of the info on how you can spend more time with her and work with her. And go and find her on social and follow her there too. Thank you so much, Kate. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. I've really appreciated your time and just getting to know you as well, because this is, just to give a bit of an insight, we've not known each other for very long, have we? You know, we just got connected. Somebody introduced us on LinkedIn, which is just an absolute joy, and somebody sent me a message and said, I think you'd like this person. I think you should have her on your new podcast, you know, and chat to her. I think you've got a lot in common. And we got together before Christmas, and it was just an absolute pleasure to meet you and get to know you. So I'm really pleased that we made this happen. I can't wait for this challenge to just come to fruition. I have no doubt that it will. You know, I'm just looking forward to witnessing it and supporting you in any way that I can. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And it'll just be awesome to continue watching you on your journey.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's been amazing, and yeah, an absolute delight to be on your podcast and to get to know you as well.